just the one package, but let's see. I can just figure out how I want to get this started, then I can work my way in. And we can just get started. Oh. So we need to remove this sticker so we can see a little sexy part of the title. Although it started, oh my gosh. This is a very, very infuriating sticker now. Bad sticker. Oh, managed to get it off. But yeah, we got Log Horizon, Destruction of the Round Table, which sounds like it's a continuation of this series, although I would guess this is a movie. Ooh, different on the cover on the inside. What here is familiar and what here is new? I don't know. Feels like it's been a long time since I watched Log Horizon. And it wasn't my favorite of this genre, but it was definitely not bad by any stretch of imagination. Trying to think if I can place my hand on this wise, but you know, it's whatever. Looking on the back, I see a Regions A and B. It looks like that's an English audio, and something here, 12 episodes. So this is actually a season and not a movie. I was thinking it was maybe a movie. I mean, I remember the two of them. They're pretty much your, well, was she a main character? I mean, he was the main, I thought. And I know she was at least close support, if not also main. Oh, maybe I should rewatch Log Horizon before I watch this. I don't know. Over here we have Adachi and Shimamura. This looks like a cute slice of life. Oh wow, this is a 3 Funimation. This is the first of February. Oh well. Oh, different on the slip cover. Jeez, when did Funimation start finally knocking it out of the park, huh? I mean, yeah, these are simpler, smaller releases, but, you know, when you do the simple, smaller ones, these slip covers differing from the inner covers are kind of nice. I was just thinking, what is this show even about? That's a very E.T.-esque sort of scene there. And, you know, so far, this plastic's not wanting to come off, but there we go. Friendship becomes something, is that neat or near? Regions A and B, English dub. That's 12 episodes on 2 discs, so this is another series. You know, it can be hard to tell sometimes because these could be movies. And you know, I know this is kind of similar to the Log Horizon release, but what can I say? This is kind of what I would... What the hell even is this anime? This feels like every picture is a completely different genre or something. All within a slice of life, but... Yeah, you know, if you're going to do a simple release, this is definitely the way to go. And last but not least, we have Sleepy Princess in the Demon Castle. And I have to say, given how much of a medieval fantasy isekai binge I've been on, this is the one that jumps out to me the most. You know, Demon Castle is definitely sounding like that, but I don't know what kind of show this is either. Different under the slipcover? Okay, no, this one stayed simple. How hard could sleeping be? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not thinking of the question. The question can be, sometimes sleeping can be really hard, but, yeah, more just like, the premise doesn't strike me as maybe scratching that medieval fantasy itch. Regions A and B, English dub, 12 episodes on 2 discs. Not that this is bad. This is some good unique artwork on the inside. What the hell is going on with this? This one is a curiosity because I don't know what to make of this at all. They just keep getting stranger and stranger as I open them up, huh? Oh well. Well, that was nice and quick. But here's this week's anime Blu-ray collection update. Okay, let's see. Last week I mentioned I started watching Tsukimichi. I'd seen the first 3 episodes. I was enjoying what had happened so far. Obviously, that was the first thing I finished. Yeah, maybe that's obvious. The thing that surprised me the most about the series is somehow it just kept getting more and more entertaining as it went. And I kind of felt like it wouldn't, but somehow it did. Of course, right now I'm having trouble remembering absolutely everything that happened in it. I mean, enough detail to kind of try to explain why maybe I felt that way. But I do know that at a minimum, I felt like the finale, and this is a season finale and not a series finale, the finale definitely left me wanting to see the next season, seeing where it was going to go from there. It definitely plays off of that sort of playing a messed up isekai sort of scenario, but it's not exactly a deconstruction of it or a reversal of it, but it is definitely playing in a different direction off of a lot of the tropes. But it is still doing a really good job of fulfilling that power fantasy, but also some of that village building that I mentioned was so good about Reincarnated as Slime. I don't think it does it quite as good as Slime, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily do it in a bad way, and it does it in a way where it's a little more autonomous, but it means that the show gets to kind of play around, I feel, with a couple of things without... Is that a good way to describe it? I don't know. Overall, I just enjoyed it. It was definitely great. Next up, I fired up The Faraway Paladin. And that was actually, I thought it was good, but it was also, I can understand why it didn't necessarily rate that good. It's got this tremendous flaw of, so like if you go by the 3 episode rule, and this is a standard rule for where even for a 12 episode anime, you're kind of asking for a lot. With a 12 episode, or with a 3 episode rule, you're trying to get an impression, okay, is this a show I'm going to want to watch? And Faraway Paladin, it kind of makes itself hard to know. It's a slow story. Not like too slow, but rather it's supposed to be something where you're taking in the moments as you go. It's not exactly slice of life, but I guess it kind of sort of is. And it's good, but it just, when you're 3 episodes in, you're not going to have a feeling for where's this show even trying to go in the long run. It's definitely taking its time doing whatever it wants to do. And it had its awesome moments for sure. And I could probably watch more of it if that was available. But, I could kind of understand. I think the rating was a little iffy. And again, it's probably that it's one of those shows that you're just supposed to kind of take in slowly. And yeah, I can kind of see where after 3 episodes people are like, where the hell is this even going? I guess I'm going to watch something else. I can't blame them for that. Next show, High School Prodigies Have It Easy Even in Another World. I didn't like it. I mean, it wasn't like it was horrible per se, as a matter of fact, but I think there's a lot of things just wrong about it that it's easy for it to rub people the wrong way. And gosh, I probably had a lot of things I wanted to say about this show, and I don't know where to begin, because it's interesting, because I thought a lot of the things that I didn't like about it harmonized in a bad way. So, for example, it's a high school prodigy, so it introduces your 7 characters, but I can't really say I liked the character ideas. Some of them are just basic, okay, yeah, this person is really good at making money, and this person is really good at fighting, and this person is really good at being a doctor or something. And they try to make them the best ones of the world, and there's more problem with that. But from a perspective, the problem is if you're going to present the character as the best blank, you're going to have to convince us, the audience, of it, and you kind of have to do it in a way where it's believable in some way, I guess. And unfortunately, it falls into a lot of trope problems for when anime try to create characters like this. Like I mentioned for Akudama Drive, the Doctor for that one was just really funny because that show was just about being silly with the characters. So you didn't really have to worry about, oh, are they the best? How is that even fucking possible? They just said, I'm an awesome doctor. That's why I was able to do that. And, you know, it kind of wears its absurdity on its head. The Doctor in this one kind of had some good moments, but also some... That doesn't feel like something that I would call best doctor in the world. That sounds like the show creators conjured something out of their ass, where the Doctor was predicting, oh, well, if these 2 people don't get needed rest, they're going to come down with this and this specific illnesses. There's something about that begged belief for me. Common tropes. So the inventor girl, of course, has this robotic computer with a computer screen animal companion thing, which I think those as a trope are super hit or miss. And in this case, I thought it was miss because it just feels like something that the show's throwing in there in order to kind of spice things up, but I didn't think it really did. But unfortunately, she was only like the 3rd worst. I really just didn't like the magician kid at all. Like, I feel like the show spent half the time, he's just there in order to be floating in the air. Because I guess the show creators kind of like that imagery, but I don't think they had a really good idea of what to actually do with it, and so they did a couple of things, but it was I thought it was very nonsensical. And then the worst, unfortunately, is the main character. And part of the reason is because he's the main character, but they try to set him up as this politician prodigy. He's a young kid who's a politician, and at that point, you're pretty much... I don't know how you can do that without setting yourself up for failure, because at least with magician stuff, you can say, oh yeah, they did this. How did they do that? Woo. But politician is a very real-world thing with so much real-world knowledge behind it, so you really have to bullshit it if you're going to do it, and unfortunately they didn't even do that. So, and the reason it's a big problem is because he's pretty much the main character. Like, the other prodigies are definitely omnipresent and stuff like that, but he's supposed to be kind of the driving decision-making behind them to a degree. And I wouldn't call some of the things he did very top politician. You know, I think because the show's wrestling with having him be main character, and oh, well, we're just going to have to make him be the one to make decisions. And they had some stuff in there that was maybe good politicking, although maybe it was actually good something else. But yeah. And so if we're talking about things that harmonize badly, there's another problem. This one, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, there's an anime called Comic Party, and if that's the one I'm remembering, our main guy gets introduced to the doujinshi world and creating fan-made comics, and he creates one and it sells a little bit, but then for the next one he's like, okay, I'm going to come up with this idea and I'm going to just put all these tropes that everybody really fucking loves right now into this one thing, and nobody liked it. And that almost feels like what this anime did, because you introduce all these 7 prodigies and they introduce all these awesome things that would be really awesome to introduce in the medieval fantasy world, but because it
can't focus on any one of them. It's just kind of doing stuff without stuff. So it has moments that are maybe stand out, but for some reason, you know, it has to switch gears and the interest has to be something else. And I don't know. It felt like there was too much, and at the same time it was trying to do something big in the background, but because it was needing to focus on all the characters, it didn't focus on big background, so it missed opportunities where something simpler like Ascendance of a Bookworm worked out a whole lot better. Because if you're going to try to introduce all these people doing awesome stuff, then you want to see the effects it's having on people, and this show was a little more interested in showing people getting addicted to mayonnaise than it's like, oh, what happens if we introduce a sewer system or indoor plumbing or something like that? You know, it missed out on big opportunities for the same sort of interesting things that Ascendance did, but on a larger scale. And maybe a part of that is related to another problem with it, which is that some of the ideas for some of the bad guys are kind of cool, but for the most part, they're very comic book villain. And it's kind of funny because it almost sounds like, oh, all villains in comic books are bad, but it's really more of the phrase of, I am evil. You know, it's maybe not that bad, but it felt like it was only a couple of steps above that, just going out of its way to make people who don't make sense in a position of power, an evil power or something like that. It's just like, this wouldn't work for very long enough to be a problem in multiple ways. So I felt the villains were very unconvincing. There were neat things about them, but I don't know if I could describe it, and I had trouble letting certain things go, or maybe coming up with more interesting ways to handle things. But I think part of the problem was that it really needed to find things for some of its characters to do that the others couldn't, maybe. And maybe confusing, okay, I need to get some conflict going on in here. And I guess, yeah, there's no point in adding conflict to a show if you don't quite succeed at it. But overall, I think that's now analysis of why I didn't like it. Other people might enjoy some of these tropes a lot more, and it won't be as bad. So it's really hard to say what this show would be like for other people, but that's kind of some of what I didn't like about it. And while I'm not putting things in the order I've watched stuff, I did put Saber against Sookie, Spirit Chronicles in there. You know, because I literally just an hour ago finished watching the first season, and that one was good. There's something about it that feels very flawed, but I'd say that for the most part, it stays interesting and watchable as you go through. I think maybe its weakness is kind of, it maybe felt like the main character was kind of led along on his journey a little too much. You know, this is a problem that people kind of level at Mary Sue stories, right? They're usually a problem because so Mary Sue's story is, it isn't always all these things, but it's generally, okay, I've created this character and the universe bends around them instead of them bending to the universe or something like that. And it's especially a problem with established franchises, with established universes, with established rules, because somebody else reading it says, yeah, I'm not really convinced that those main series characters would actually think that or say that this would happen and that would happen. And there's a lot of stuff that can definitely, it can definitely straddle that fence or something like that. An idea that comes to mind as a comparison point is Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. It's a fan-made story that's trying to explore certain things, but of course it's taking certain liberties with what goes on in, or what the mechanics of the Harry Potter universe might be, and it's coming up with hypotheses for certain stuff, and there's contrivances in there, and it definitely has the same wisps of Mary Sue-ness, but I think, and again, it's probably been like 10 or 15 years since I read any of it. I don't know if the author finished it or they just dropped it or what. But it definitely came up with interesting ideas, and it explored interesting ideas, so it had some creative potential in that regard. And it's kind of worth reading just because there's thoughts in there. I mean, I think other people have had thoughts before, like, you know, it tries to talk about why is House Slytherin where dark wizards come from, and maybe a hypothesis on how maybe there's kind of a reputation thing going on there, and they're not necessarily as bad as you would think they are, per se, but definitely because of a reputational issue or something. Like, I'm probably not quoting it perfectly right, but I do remember, you know, you have to remember that some people are ambitious and they're not evil because they're ambitious. And, you know, sometimes Slytherin kind of confuses that in Harry Potter. Anyways, that's a long deviation from Spirit Chronicles. I'm guessing Seira Gensauke might mean that in Japanese. I'm not sure. But, yeah, it was hard to tell how much our main character was doing stuff. And the other weird thing was the way it did time transition, because it had some time jumps in there moving forward into the future, because certain things happened, but kind of the way it did it was a little disorienting. So the show kind of has this kind of feeling like the main character is maybe being led along, and it's like, yeah, and this character and that character, and he's kind of not directly forming a harem, sort of. I don't know how to explain that without saying more about the story than I want to, but it's not like that stuff is unknown. I guess the main problem is it ends as season 1 here, and I'm going to guess that a season 2 is maybe scheduled, because the way season 1 ended, it's like season 2 is just around the corner. And I think the episode 12 aired near the end of last year, so that would explain, you know, like a half year or year hiatus or something like that. So I'm definitely curious to see more, but I wouldn't be surprised if people found it flawed, because again, it feels like it. And then, last but not least, for new things I've watched, I started watching Princess Connect Redive. This is the first season. Season 2 is airing right now, as far as I can tell. But I wanted to watch the first season. I didn't know if the Redive part meant that this was actually a continuation of something else, and it might be, but I don't think it's a continuation of an anime. I think this is an implementation of a game, and that game could be a sequel to another game. I'm not really sure. But it's a weird show because it's good, but it also has a kind of huge flaw to it. So, basically, I think this comes from the fact that it is an implementation of a game, not just a game with a story arc, but rather a mobile game, I think it is. And, you know, mobile games don't necessarily have, okay, here's the story, you have to get to the story arc. They just have you there to do something that's kind of fun to continue doing, I think. And if Princess Connect is that kind of game, then it explains why this anime is the way it is, because I'm 3 episodes in, and unlike Faraway Paladin, where you can kind of judge it by, okay, this is a show that's supposed to be slowly watched, I have absolutely no fucking idea what this anime wants to be doing long term. It just set something up at the end of the 3rd episode, but I'm like, but that doesn't seem to have anything to do with this other thing, which seemed to be the main thing that you mentioned, but you're not actually doing anything with the maybe main character. I say maybe main character, it's the person that's called Lord or My Lord or whatever. If I were to take a guess, based on this idea I have that Princess Connect is about, maybe you have this party of princess knights that you kind of command and make grow and maybe do some other stuff, then Yuki, I think that's his name, would be you, the player. And that explains a lot of why it's not giving him a whole lot to make you go, oh yeah, this is why I want to watch this character. Instead, it's doing it more about other characters around him, which... Well, let me finish this thought before I finish that thought. He also does not speak a lot. He does little lines here and there, but it really does feel way more blank slate-ish than usually what I see for a main guy. But it works out. It's kind of neat and refreshing. But I don't know if he's supposed to be the main character of the show because there's this other girl who apparently has a bottomless stomach that might be. Maybe she's main character story if there is a story in the mobile game. I don't know. But she seems to be a little more of the focal point of things floating around, even though we're introduced to the world through him. Kind of. It's really weird. So, that's a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of analysis of it. And so, the problem with the show is I'm 3 episodes in, and every time before I watch an episode, I'm like, why am I going to watch it? What are these characters trying to do again? What direction are they going? I don't know. But every individual episode so far has been outrageously entertaining. It's got good energy, good comedy to it. It's funny. I just enjoyed the humor. It maybe feels like they go a little too overboard with the one servant girl always doing this face, but even that isn't too bad because they don't. Even if it feels like they're overstepping that one, they're not overstepping it so much that it's actually a problem, especially since, it's just one of those things that she does every once in a while. It's just a funny face and it's, pass. It's not wasting our time doing it. And usually the thing was funny, but sometimes it's just a matter of whether or not we feel like seeing that face again, because it's a fun face. It's a funny face. But it doesn't quite hold a candle to the funny faces in Konosuba. But that's setting a stupidly high barrier, because that show can live off of its hilariously stupid faces. In fact, those hilariously stupid faces are so popular they've become memes absolutely everywhere. So, that's not a fair comparison per se. But, it's not Konosuba in that regard. But the character dynamics are really fun. They're refreshing. They're different. And again, I've enjoyed every episode I've watched. I just don't have anything motivating me to put on the next episode. So maybe what I need is to actually have something where, I watch another episode because, I've been watching 2 episodes of anime before I go to bed. Because the Roku's set up in the bedroom, that makes it nice and easy. And, I'm about to get to the stuff that I've been watching doing that. It doesn't feel like that much. Well, no. Putting that aside. So maybe what I need is just that. It's maybe less bingey and more just watch 1 episode a week, and it's really great. And that would make sense because some of the clips I've seen of at least one event that happens, I think in the 2nd season, it looks like it stays pretty funny. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more, but I've been dragging my feet because it's not telling me a story. So I need to figure out how to introduce that into all the stuff I'm watching. And then, like I said, there's a bunch of one-off stuff that I'm following as they air or slowly catching up on. So, Guy Who Reincarnated as a Fantasy Knockout, episode 4 came out. That one was still funny. They introduced the Kirito lookalike, which, interesting enough, Sunray against Sookie's main character kind of becomes a Kirito lookalike as well. Maybe Kirito from Sword Art Online wasn't the first character to do that, but if he was and he popularized it, then it's kind of interesting to see it in a couple other places. They look cool, but I can't help but think they're referencing that. But Fantasy Knockout just continues to be just a funny show. I'm looking forward to watching more episodes just because it's been consistently funny. In the Land of Leedale, that one... Okay, so episode 4 I mentioned kind of went whoa, holy shit, Jesus Christ, that's grotesque. Whoa, whoa, whoa. But I'm not sure if episode 5 had anything like that, but it doesn't necessarily need that. It's definitely setting up to keep going forward, and it's kind of doing a lot of the same things that I've found that I've been enjoying about Lead Ale up to this point, which is our main character's just kind of pleasant to watch, but also interesting when she's being a childish, super overpowered lady, I guess. So I've caught up on My Dress Up Darling, unless another episode came out today, but this means I've watched up to episode 5, and it's been a really nice show. I think I remembered saying that I really liked the first episode. I don't know if I talked about why, and watching 5 episodes, I have to say, one of the things I really like about it, so I really appreciate anime which give the main character just something for you to digest and say, it's really cool that they can do that. And obviously watching all these isekai, you can say, oh, you mean like he can boom, blow up an entire town? And I'm like, no, it doesn't even have to be anything that major. We as human beings are communal creatures. I know it can be really easy to forget that. Some of y'all may be like, well, I haven't seen the sun in 3 months, and that's fine. But at some level, we're designed to socialize, and I think one of the things that tends to bring us down as individuals is just that with the way our society has moved forward, it's harder for somebody to feel like they're a part of the community. And I know I felt a lot of that when I was younger, and I'm like, well, I don't know how to go out into the world and be useful in the workforce. And now I'm on the other end of that saying, well, yeah, how can I not be useful? My question is, am I useful enough to be paid however much I'm being paid? And that's a certain separate discussion, but that feeling that you're helping other people, that you're contributing, that you're making things better, that doesn't even necessarily be on a some sort of worldwide grand, oh, I'm cleaning up the plastic thing in the middle of the ocean. This can even be a smaller thing. I mean, think of this as like what happens if you have one town of people and another town of people. In this town of people, you probably have some people that are specializing in growing food, and other people that are specializing in preparing the food, and other people that are specializing in keeping the houses maintained or something like that. These people are working together, and there's a sense of fulfillment that comes from being a part of that. And the reason we as humans can continue to have work even though, there's more people is we don't stay in that one town. There's another town over here, and you just double the number of people, but they're all having to do the same sort of thing. And it's harder to feel that in our society just because I think a lot of our specialization makes it hard to not only feel the effect, but also when you're doing a small thing that isn't specialized, it can be really hard to feel that. But, at the end of the day, when I go to a restaurant and I buy my Chipotle burrito, those people are doing it in and out. They're probably not particularly spectacularly compensated. It's not a glamorous job. Except the guy in the back who has to wear the metal glove, he's pretty much the knight of Chipotle, right? But, to take a step back from that silly comment, those people are still helping a lot of other people get food. That's food that people don't have to prepare on their own, that people don't have to stock on their own. They're keeping all of society moving, even if it's not in the biggest way possible, but we're individual people. We're not about moving entire mountains as an individual. If that mountain gets moved, it's probably because there's 100 people working on it, and you're just one small of that. You might have moved a little bit of dirt, but if everybody did that, then that's where the big stuff comes from, but the fulfillment comes from being that small part of it. And this is a long rant, but My Dress Up Darling, I really like what it does with the main character because it does feel like it's that. It's not like he's doing anything that's like mind-blowing, but he's got a certain set of skills that are a little less common than what average person has. And while it's not setting him up to be the most awesome out there, they're setting him up so that he's actually just being really helpful to other people around him. And it's just an offshoot of what he was already interested in doing. So that is really great. But there's also this wholesome slice of lifiness going on where it's not just that he's doing it, it's just that he's also getting appreciated. Now, it would be nice if, there were more people interacting, but it's also slightly a romantic show, I think. in its slice of lifeness, so it keeps the interaction focused on the main characters, which does weaken that a little bit, but for the most part, it still works out really good. She as a person is really good for having on the screen. I don't mean looks. I mean, it does go more risque, and some of that stuff would be my less favorite stuff, but the main character finally getting through a lot of it is great. Because his social awkwardness is something where it's just like, oh, well, there's no reason to be awkward, but that's me. And obviously I'm not that character. That just means we're disconnected, and that can make it kind of awkward, and I'm like, I don't like remembering how awkward stuff like that was. But it's not disruptive, not in any way. It's great, and yeah, I was talking about, she's great because she just has a very I don't think fun is the right personality. I think she has an energizing personality. Not to be confused with energetic. I think she is also energetic, but she feels like she really does bring up the people around her, and that's pretty great. And there's moments in there that were definitely touching along those lines, and I don't know if I want to say too much, because if you haven't watched it, then you want to watch it. The thing that's tricky about evaluating her is that she looks a little spicier than I think she's supposed to look. And I think it's because the way they draw her smile makes it kind of look like she's sticking out her tongue in a way that I would more associate with somebody who has daddy issues than somebody that's all about energizing the people around them. I would say that somebody with daddy issues is at risk of maybe drawing attention more towards them, I guess. Don't call me I'm not a psychologist on it, so don't quote me on it, but these are just these thoughts and feelings I've had. But fortunately, she's rising above that imagery, so, it's been a pretty good show. And then, last but not least on my list of stuff there is I'm continuing to watch Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid Season 2, and I'm not sure what to say other than it continues to be very entertaining and thought-provoking. And I don't think this time there were any scenes that made me get a little teary-eyed, but I've been liking what it's been doing. It's very possible that it doesn't quite have as much impact as the first season, but some of that could also be the first season was really doing its own thing, and I could be thinking about what the first season did overall leading up to its finale. So I'm kind of curious how this one's going to go towards its end. But I've continued to enjoy it. Shouldn't be a surprise. It's Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. The person that made it has a fucking head on his shoulders, unlike a lot of people out there. Okay. And that's all the Crunchyroll stuff. Friday Friend thing just didn't happen because of the freeze here in Austin. How did that go? It went pretty well. I'd like to say except that we were on a boil water notice, but it sounds like they're saying that wasn't because of the freeze, even though the boil water notice happened immediately after the freeze. Sus as fuck, but, they don't really have a reason to lie, per se. They keep saying, it's actually that somebody made a mistake. That sounds like a bigger admittance of failure than saying, oh, yeah, we weren't prepared for the freeze. But, yeah. Now, I personally hate the taste of boiled water, so I'm seeing how long I can live off of my supplies of things of filtered water. And I might be going a little light on the water, which if my voice has sounded a little crackly today, that could be because I'm probably not drinking as much fluids as I normally do. Just a guess. But, putting all that aside, the only thing I watched that was not off of Crunchyroll was 2 more episodes of Interspecies Reviewers. And, in that case, I really wanted to specifically reach the 3-episode mark before I talked about it, so I watched it just before recording this video. And it's, continuing to be pretty good. I'm trying to remember exactly what I said last week, but when you watch it episode to episode, you really do feel like that it isn't just, oh, here's our excuse for sex scenes. And I kind of mentioned that was the nice thing about it, where a lot of hentai, they're like, okay, and now these 2 people are just going to have 3 frames of animation going like this for, 5 minutes? And they'll probably just do it from different angles. It feels like you can tell the hentai was looking for excuses to get to those, and it makes them run a long time even though there's not much there. And the scenes that are in interspecies reviewers are a lot more natural and thoughtful, I guess. Where they definitely come up with themes for what the characters are going to be experiencing and playing with, etc. And they're trying to make it thought-provoking. I mean, I've just said that word a couple times, but it's interesting. You know, I can see... It wasn't just a one-episode wonder, which I didn't think it would be. You know, it's not infamous, but it was impactful in its own perverted way. And again, it looks like for good reason. Now, that said, whether or not this is censored or uncensored, I would have to know what the censored version was like, because there's definitely been some Japanese pixelization for certain angles, which makes me wonder if this is really that uncensored. But I don't know. If they censored nipples or something like that all the time, then yeah, this has those all the time. Maybe this goes in line with what somebody else said about the opening having something censored out, but I don't know. The truth of the matter is I'm mostly just interested in experiencing it for myself and giving y'all, I guess, my earnest thoughts. And hopefully, as I speak about this, y'all can feel, okay, yeah, that's his opinion. He thinks that's a fact, but that's not actually a fact. That's another opinion. You know, as long as you pick through my stuff and kind of get that, I think my goals are good. My goals are being reached, because I don't want to pretend like I'm the ultimate authority on here. I do sometimes see, oh yeah, this is actually rated pretty high. I wonder why. Oh, yeah, okay, makes sense why. And I give my thoughts on that. But that's still not even fact. That's opinion still. But I don't know. So beyond that, is there anything else worth talking about? You know, still playing Dead by Daylight, although so far tonight I haven't played it. I do feel like I'm tired. And that one could just be the, you know, maybe I'm not getting enough fluids to drink. I don't know. Hopefully we'll find out next week. In theory, the boiled water notice lifts tomorrow. We just have to see if it actually does. There's always reasons why it could end up being delayed. I haven't found any evidence that it's progressed forward like it should, but yeah, here's hoping you don't have to drink boiled water, because that's when you get rid of many of the things that make water taste good, I guess. Oh well, y'all, have a nice week.